Be present. What you need to do is participate and contribute. Don't just sit there and think, actually, I'll do this round the back. Actually join meetings, work with people in groups, put yourself into extended teams. Try and work with those groups to spot the opportunities. If you can spot those opportunities, you then can sit down with the marketing teams and say, actually, I know what you're trying to achieve with this group of customers. I think there's an opportunity here to work with them. I know they're in digital. I've got some data. I know they're operating in such a blog or in such a space. Work with the teams. Be social. First thing, you know, everybody's got laptops open. A lot of people have got laptops open. Just an aside, I noticed when I was on holiday, younger generations actually spend more time around the pool. They were on iPads, on Kindles, they weren't talking. Older generations were forming groups and actually sitting down and sharing a beer, having a conversation. Are we losing social skills? Do we hide behind our computers when we're talking about digital because that's the medium we're comfortable in? What we need is our social skills to have that conversation and bring people forward. Talk, not Twitter, talk. Twitter's great for across continents, but talk to your teams, don't tweet internally. Share the love. Make this about the individuals, make this about the teams you're trying to influence. Talk to them about your desire to help them, how you want to do something for them, how you want to do the best for their brand, how you want to do the best for their team. And pay it forwards. Always do something for your teams before you ask them to make a step change. It's quite easy to start working with them, helping them move their brand along, understand their market, work with them, and then try to change the organisation a little bit. So I say there's 3 light bulb drivers. These are the moments when your team sit there and go, no, I don't get, I really do get this. And I see this as I work with people around the organisation. You can have these teams where sit there and go, well, I don't really understand digital. I don't understand what you're trying to achieve. And you explain it, and all of a sudden you feel like, ping, and they get it. And they make a movement forwards. They're not going to take a massive leap forwards, but they take a step forwards. So the light bulb drivers, what I've found is that people get these light bulb moments when you try and share information with a positive theme. Always try to get across that what you're trying to do is positive, it's great, it's moving forwards, it's an advancement. People also like when you challenge them with a complex theory. I don't mean challenge them like, I think you're rubbish, I think you're wrong. Challenge them with a complex theory. Challenge them to think away from their normal mindset. Actually make them think about what they're trying to, about their market. Try and get them to see it differently and challenge their thinking. And people like awe-inspiring stories. You know, when we open up a newspaper, you look at all the headlines that are in there and you pick out the ones, you actually see the headlines and you actually read the articles first based upon the awe-inspiring story. What is it that actually makes you go, interesting, and I'll read the article. People like awe-inspiring stories. And they can be large scale. Something that's happened in our industry, it could be a big step change. It could be somebody's implemented a social media policy. That's a big step change. I won't name any names. It's a different perspective. It's making people think slightly differently. It's actually, I'm outside of this, I don't understand it, but I understand a different view. I've just read Tony Blair's book, the ex-Prime Minister's book. Wasn't a big fan of the Labour government. Read his book, swung a little bit. I like the guy a little bit more. I've read his story. It was an awe-inspiring story, and it's given me a different perspective. And personal epiphanies. When those moments come and everyone goes, I really do get this, I understand it, I understand what you're trying to achieve, you get the personal epiphany. So 6 drivers of influence. Reciprocation. This can be used for creating those experiences. If you want to create a day where you want to try and take people on your digital journey with you, the 6 drivers of influence. Reciprocation. Create an experience that they want to share. This is based upon Robert Cialdini's research. And I adapted it from it thinking about how we can move our organisations forwards and create an experience that people want to share. So how do you do something that people actually want to come to and come away from it with a warm feeling and thinking, I know what I'm doing, I'm moving forwards, I'm going to go digital. Consistency. Make people pledge their commitment to move forwards in front of their colleagues. If you try and do everything in closed groups, if you've got all the marketing teams and you're working on them individually, they may just do the same thing. Why not get all the marketing teams together and actually try and move them all, try and get them to pledge their commitment in front of their colleagues? If they pledge in front of their colleagues, there's an embarrassment factor if they don't do it. Social proof, express how their equivalents have done it. How have other teams done it? How have other companies done it? How have we moved the industry forwards? And liking. Get one of the other teams to try it. Get one of your innovators within your organisation to try something out and get them to talk about it to their colleagues and say, actually, this really worked for us. And authority. I love this one. It's great that we all stand up on stage and I stand up at work and talk to people, but there's nothing like getting an external speaker and getting another person from outside your organisation, from outside your company to come in and explain it, because people see that as a level of authority. And scarcity. You could create an opportunity, very select few, try and just invite a few people, try and create scarcity, because people will then try, if they create that experience for that small select group, other people will want to know what they're missing out on, and then will want to have that replicated with them. We've done this at work where we create little opportunities, we get together a couple of people and we try and move them forwards, because then they will go out and replicate that. So change is one of those things that happens in all organisations. Digital, hopefully what I've explained this morning can help you understand some of the barriers that you may encounter whilst you're trying to change your organisation to be more digital, if that can actually exist, be more digital. But change is one of those things that people fear. Like I said, people don't resist change, people fear being changed. And what can often happen is that you want to avoid this, the Bohicker principle. Has anybody heard of the Bohicker principle? No? It basically means bend over, here it comes again. That's what you want to avoid. So, thank you very much. I hope I've given you some insight into organisational change, how you can work with your teams, give you some food for thought about how you can work with your teams and influence them. But there we go. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much, Guy, for that very interesting presentation. Have we got any questions from the floor? Cool, excellent. Could you please say who you are and which organisation you are?
Yes, sure. My name is Judith von Gordon. I'm coming from Böhringer Ingelheim. I would like to know a little bit more in concrete terms. How did Glaxo organize the structure? Who is dealing with social media? Is it marketing? Is it communication? Is it a mix of both?
So we've actually got a mix of both, that we do have a team looking at social media from a communications and from a marketing perspective. So we do have a team working on that.
And how did you organize the most difficult question for me? Who is responsible for, let's say, blogs in English language? Is it your US organization? Is it your British organization, the Australians, the Canadians?
So we've actually got a mix. We've got a team in the US managing some of the US blogs, and then in the UK we've got a team looking at UK and European blogs through gsk.com. So it depends on which side of the ocean you are.
But if you don't know where the blogger is coming from?
Sorry?
If you do not know where the blogger is coming from, how do you organize that?
From a blog on our internal?
No, not an internal blog, an external blog, talking about one of your drugs.
So whether it's one of our US blogs or whether it's one of our European?
It could be a blog on whatever website.
Yes.
Discussing a Glaxo drug. So who is dealing with that? Who is engaging with the blogger? Let's assume that it's a negative blog with a misrepresentation of some facts or whatever.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It depends on where that information is posted. Depends on whether it's going to be on the US side, because the US teams will manage information posted to the US blogs, or if it's on the European side, it will be managed by one of our teams out of our European office, our head office in London. Does that answer the question?
I think, Judith, were you trying to get, if I can help here, Judith, were you trying to get to the point of how do you identify who
Correct.
the blogger is, and therefore how do you reply to them according to the regulations that may apply in the country of residence of that blogger?
Correct. Is it a question of where is the server, or is it a question of can you find out from where the blogger comes?
To be quite honest, I can't answer that because I'm not in part of that team, so I can't really give you the specifics on that. I'd have to get back to you on that one, I'm afraid.
Is there anybody in the audience who's had that experience and perhaps can add to the conversation? No. Okay, perhaps we'll gather some of those thoughts over the next couple of days. Prior to the meeting, we also went out to participants and asked a few questions that may want to put in this meeting. We've got Sam down here on the front, also monitoring the tweets. Have you got any questions from the tweets, Sam, this morning? Wi-Fi, okay. I've got, perhaps might be useful. Kai, I was going to ask you a question. For the audience that's here, when they go back to their organisations following this meeting, and you went through the 6 drivers of influence, is it sequential? Do you start with one followed by the other, or do you do all of them? And what would you recommend, therefore, to organisations who go away from this meeting and say, great, okay, some really great stuff going on. I want to take that into the organisation. I've tried before. I've not been successful. What do I need to do differently? If you had to give 1 or 2 sort of top tips, what would they be?
I think it's important to understand the teams that you're working with and understand where they are on your digital journey. If you know where you want to take the organisation, you've actually got to understand where those people are on that journey. Because then you can interchange some of the drivers of influence and actually put people on the ladder at different stages. But it does come down to knowing the teams, knowing the individuals and working with them. You'll never move the organisation in one big leap. You're going to have to take it off and take it in little steps.
Okay. John, question for Kai.
Hi, John Mack, Pharma Marketing News. I've been, and you've been involved in this for a long time, and I just wanted to ask you a sort of a personal question. Where do you think you're going to be in 2 or 3 years from now? Because I remember in the turn of the century here, a long time ago, in the 1.1 world with pharma, there were people like you within the pharma companies who were trying to educate their colleagues about the 1.0 world out there. And then something happened to those people. They were gone. And a farmer did not, the amount of interest in the internet seemed to have waned at that point. Maybe with the dot-com bust, this whole, do you think something like that is going to happen again? I mean, do you have an idea of where you might be in 2 or 3 years, let's say?
It's an interesting question. It's like one of those ones you get at an interview. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Your job. I think it is, I'd like to think that you can move in 2 to 3 years, that the marketers and the teams that I work with have actually moved and actually understand digital and integrate digital in everything they do. I spend a lot of my time looking further ahead than 2 to 3 years, trying to anticipate some of the changes that we're going to face in the industry, especially in digital, looking at opportunities for our organisation. I'd like to think the marketers all understand digital. I saw some research a few weeks ago that said in the next 5 years, if the modern marketer doesn't have digital as a feather in their cap, they will no longer be a marketer. And that's come from the Chartered Institute of Marketing, saying that marketers have to understand digital as part of the marketing mix. I think the slides that I alluded to when I talk about where people are at the moment, if they've come from that traditional route of sales, they're going to struggle. They need to understand digital to a greater depth, because in 2 to 3 years our industry is going to be very different. I think we've now got to educate our marketers, educate our management teams, educate anybody that works in the organisation to work in this space, because we need to be transparent, we need to be honest, we need to provide information when people need it. And that's a big step change for any organisation. Even some of the bigger companies who work in this space, we look at Nestle, for example, who, big social media activity, weren't quite honest in what was going on. And the backlash against them was huge. And you've got some companies who've used social media and not been honest, and the backlash again has been huge. Pulling blog posts and not posting, having disparaging comments against individuals. We've got to move organisations to be open, honest, transparent, and be aware that we are very visible. And that's where I'd like to be in 2 to 3 years.